Canada, a people's history. Proudly presented with the corporate partnership support of Sun Life Financial and by the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation.
Autumn 1838. Late at night, somewhere near the Richelieu River in Lower Canada, a secret ceremony is unfolding. These men are plotting an armed rebellion. They call themselves hunters, frères chasseurs. They want to make Canada a North American republic independent of Britain.
Of my own free will, and in the presence of God Almighty, I do solemnly swear to observe the secret signs and mysteries of the Hunters' Lodge.
To help any brother.
Joseph Senet is one of the recruits.
I was told that the Americans will come with weapons, and that they will be assisted by our countrymen that will rise in great numbers, and that with this army, we will attack simultaneously different locations, and that the present government will be overthrown, and another, formed on the American model, will be established.
The hunters swear they will give their lives for the cause of freedom. It is a price many will be called to pay.
All this I promise without reservation.
If I'm unfaithful to this oath.
If I am unfaithful to this oath, I consent to see my property destroyed and to have my own throat cut to the bone.
In the 1830s, Canada lives through some of its darkest and most desperate hours. Demands for political freedom lead to armed rebellion. Violent confrontation with one of the world's most powerful armies. Shouts of victory from the great revolutions in France and America still echo around the world. The mightiest empires of Europe and Latin America are shaken to their foundations. In Canada, the currents of revolution exact a terrible cost. Hundreds die on the battlefields, and dozens more are hanged as traitors. But from the ashes of this failed revolution, something new is born. An alliance of Democrats that brings Canada a new political future. In the years after 1820, British North America seems a tranquil, even an idyllic place. It is a land of seemingly inexhaustible natural resources, where men and women make their living in the forests and the fields. Every autumn, armies of lumberjacks invade the brooding timber stands of Canada and New Brunswick. And every spring, the raftsmen float tens of thousands of logs out to market. From the Ottawa River to the Miramichi, from the St. Lawrence to the St. John, wood has replaced fur as the economic engine of British North America. Many of these logs are used to build ships, here in Quebec City or in other colonial ports. The Royal William, the first Canadian steamship to cross the Atlantic, was launched here in 1831. But most colonial lumber goes to the building sites of Great Britain. Every year, hundreds of ships bearing cargoes of elm, oak, and pine set sail from Quebec and St. John, New Brunswick. And every year, they return with a very different cargo. Thousands of men, women, and children. The beginning of an unprecedented wave of immigration. One of these immigrants, Catherine Parr Trail, is enchanted by her new home as she sails up the St. Lawrence in 1832.
The misty curtain is slowly drawn up as if by invisible hand, and the wild wooden mountains partially revealed with their bold, rocky and sweeping bays. At other times, the vapory volume dividing moves along the valleys and deep ravines like lofty pillars of smoke, or hangs in snowy draperies among the dark forest pines.
By the 1830s, 30,000 newcomers a year land at Quebec, the gateway to the Canadas. Some are relatively prosperous, middle-class families fleeing a climate of economic stagnation that has gripped England, Scotland, and Ireland since the end of the Napoleonic Wars. Others are less fortunate, but all seek a better life in the New World.
Canada is the land of hope. Here everything is new, everything going forward. It is scarcely possible for arts, sciences, agriculture, manufactures to retrograde. They must keep advancing.
Some immigrants settle in Lower Canada, but most continue on to the western frontier. Upper Canada is the fastest growing colony in the British Empire. By 1831, there are already 260,000 people here. The new immigrants from the British Isles mix with the descendants of loyalists and American settlers who came in the wake of the American Revolution. Through land purchases and the sheer weight of numbers, the Aboriginal peoples who once had this land to themselves are slowly but surely being pushed aside. Settlers like Catherine Parr Trail soon realized that beyond the cities, much of Upper Canada is still just a step removed from the wilderness.
Much as I had seen and heard of the badness of the roads in Canada, I was not prepared for such a one as we traveled along this day. Indeed, it hardly deserved the name of a road. Sometimes I laughed, because I would not cry.
The difficulty of building roads has so far kept most settlements stretched out along the shores of Lake Ontario and Lake Erie. But some are now moving north into the backcountry. Pioneer life is hard, and men like Robert Davis are becoming angry.
I have had, in most instances, made my own roads and bridges, cleared my own farm, educated myself and my children. I have had my bones broken by the fall of trees, my feet lacerated by the axe, and suffered almost everything except death. I waited year after year in hope of better days, expecting that the government would care less for themselves and more for the people. But every year, I have been disappointed.
The neighboring colony of Lower Canada has been settled much longer, for 200 years. 500,000 people live here, in well-established towns and farm communities spreading out from the St. Lawrence. The flourishing state of the countryside along the Richelieu River impresses the colony's Surveyor General, Joseph Bouchette.
Its banks are diversified on each side by many farms and extensive settlements in a very high state of improvement. Some neat, populous, and flourishing villages, handsome churches, numerous mills of various kinds, good roads in all directions, with every other characteristic of a country inhabited by an industrious population.
The parish of Saint-Denis on the Richelieu now has 3,000 inhabitants. Charles Saint-Germain owns the biggest hat-making business in the colony. François Gadebois sells his horse-drawn carriages in Quebec City, Montreal, and even in Upper Canada. But not everyone is so prosperous. In the countryside around Saint-Denis, peasants cultivate land that is not their own, a legacy of New France's feudal origins. Year after year, they must turn over a substantial portion of their harvest to the landlord, called the seigneur. For many hard-pressed families, the burden is too heavy to bear. Louis Duquet has been evicted from his farm on the seigneurie of Beauharnois. He and his young family must seek out a new plot of land and rebuild their lives. Most of the good seigneurial land is now occupied, and the seigneurs are demanding higher rents every year. In desperation, the tenant farmers turn to their representatives in the Legislative Assembly, demanding protection and redress.
A great many seigneurs treated these lands as if they had absolute authority over them, selling and transferring them at exorbitant prices by means of illegal contracts, while His Majesty's Canadian subjects have not, until now, been protected against these abuses.
On the quiet farms of Lower Canada, the rumblings of discontent are growing louder. Soon, the anger will explode.